Hello, thank you for taking the course, Come Follow Me, Fundamentals of Christian Discipleship. This course is designed to be the base course in the Northwest School of Discipleship that helps people understand what it means to be a disciple and set the language and the tone for all the other courses to come. This class is an overview of lesson one of Come Follow Me, and that is the language of discipleship. There are three terms that we use over and over again in the School of Discipleship, and we want to talk about those today. The first one is the term disciple. Now, this word disciple occurs over 260 times in the New Testament. It is a very common word. This Greek word, mathetes, shows up and it refers to a person who is a student, who is a learner, someone who is an apprentice behind another person. And this is the term that's used of those who have committed themselves to Jesus. There are several important passages in the book of Matthew that illustrate what a disciple really is. For example, in Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 8, the great passage known as the Transfiguration. God the Father shows up, and after Jesus has been transfigured and his appearance appears as white as light, and the disciples are kind of freaked out, and the voice from heaven says, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." The only command that's given to these men is to listen to him. And a disciple is someone who's listening to Jesus. We also pointed out Matthew chapter 10, Jesus sends out his early disciples on a mission. And he says, by the way, you're going to be mistreated because they mistreated me. They're going to mistreat you, because a disciple is not above his master. In fact, it's enough for a disciple to be like his master. So a disciple is someone who's trying to be like the person that they're following. In our case, it's following Jesus. We want to be like him. And then also we looked at Matthew chapter 11, that great passage where Jesus says, come to me, come to me, all of you who are laborers and burdened, and you have heavy ladens, and I will give you rest for your souls. Learn of me. I'm a good teacher. I'm a meek teacher. But that idea of being a learner, someone who learns of Jesus, is critical to what it means to be a disciple. We also looked at that first call of the disciples in Matthew chapter 4, verses 19 and following, where Jesus calls Peter, James, and John, and Andrew and says, come follow me. And in that verse, there are really some critical components. And we borrowed this from a great book called The Disciple Maker's Handbook by Patrick and Harrington. And they identify that verse as really characterizing the essence of what it means to be a disciple. You see that Jesus says, follow me, and then I will make you fishers of men. And the idea is that a disciple, coming out of this verse, is someone who is following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and committed to the mission of Jesus. And of course, the mission of Jesus is to seek and save the lost. It's to reconcile the world to God. It's to be the one who communicates the love of God to the world and helps them escape the wrath of God that's coming on the world that is disobedient to him. And so Jesus' mission is something that a disciple is committed to. So a disciple is someone who's following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and committed to the mission of Jesus. The second term that we talked about is that basic word discipleship. Now, this word discipleship simply means the state of being a disciple. And for us in this Northwest School of Discipleship, we want to make sure everyone understands that being a disciple or discipleship is not just about knowledge. It's not just about studying the Bible and learning everything about the Bible or learning everything about God. It's deeper than that. And so the tagline for the Northwest School of Discipleship is knowledge, affection, and obedience. Because discipleship is not just about learning and having knowledge here. It's about it moving to here, to our heart, and to our hands. We want to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We want to really have an affection for God because he has loved us so much and he's done everything for us. We love him back. But that affection, based on knowledge, will result in obedience. It is really impossible for someone who claims to be a disciple of Jesus, who claims to be in the state of being a disciple. It's impossible for that kind of person to disobey Jesus, to say, I know Jesus said to do this, but I'm not going to do that. That is rejecting discipleship. And so our understanding of discipleship is it's about knowledge, affection, and obedience. One of the things that's been critical, one book that's been helpful in our study of discipleship is Dallas Willard's little book called The Great Omission, in which there's a collection of his essays over the years about discipleship. And one of those essays in that book really raises the question that some people, maybe even you, have, which is, if I'm saved, if I've been baptized, I'm going to heaven, I have the hope of going to heaven when I die, do I really need to bother with all of this discipleship stuff? Following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and being committed to his mission. Do I really need to do that? And Willard answers, yes, we need to do that. And the reason for that is fourfold. Number one, Jesus requires discipleship. He doesn't just say, oh, get saved. He says, no, come follow me, which is the act of being a disciple. Secondly, if we are ever going to have moral victory as Christians, we need to be following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and being committed to his mission. So many Christians fail to live a victorious life because they're simply not sitting at Jesus' feet. They're not trying to be like him. They're not listening to him. They're not learning from him. And then they may be surprised when they can't seem to overcome sin and difficulties in their life. Well, it's because you're not sitting at the feet of Jesus, the one who overcame difficulties, the perfect God-man who never sinned. He's the one that can show us how to have moral victory. And so discipleship will lead to moral victory. Number three, inward transformation also requires discipleship. We don't just want to be people who do the right thing. We want to have inward transformation. We don't want to just do actions that are right. We want to have the right desires. We want to have the transformation of the mind. And that's what comes with discipleship. We will be changed on the inside, and that will result in outward obedience and actions that are pleasing to God. And then finally, you will have power. I will have power for ministry only if I am involved in discipleship. Do you want to help people move from one state of spirituality to another one, go upward, closer to God? Do you want to be able to see our churches thrive? Power for ministry is based on discipleship. If we're sitting at the feet of Jesus, we're going to learn how to minister in a way that pleases God and brings people to him. So, discipleship, the state of being a disciple. Our final word that we use in this opening lesson about the language of discipleship is the term disciple making. Disciple making comes out of the Great Commission of Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 through 20, where Jesus gives the Great Commission to his followers. They come to him and he says, listen, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe everything that I have commanded you. And lo, I will be with you until the end of the age. This wonderful, great final command is the base of what it means to be a disciple maker. And we point out the fact that this command really has one command, and that is to make disciples. But then there's three things that have to happen in order for us to make disciples. We've got to be going, we've got to be baptizing, we've got to be teaching. Going kind of illustrates that idea that we've got to be intentional. We can't be lackadaisical. We've got to have movement. When someone says something is outside of their comfort zone, a disciple says, well, so what? If Jesus wants me to go outside my comfort zone to bring people to him, I'll do it. And so there's a movement that has to happen to be a disciple maker. Baptizing people is essential to what it means to be a disciple maker. Not necessarily that you personally do the act of baptizing, but that you help people understand that baptism is that point at which we are fully giving ourselves to Christ. We're being immersed with him and raised a new person. That discipleship is not just about adding a little bit onto your life, but it's an all-encompassing commitment that we make. We help people count the cost. And all of that is wrapped up in what baptism is about. It's also baptism into the name of the triune name of God, that powerful name, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is the essence of God. And so baptism is critical to fulfilling the Great Commission. And then finally, teaching. There's a lot of teaching that you will do. And so if you're going to be a teacher and a disciple maker, you've got to be equipped and knowledgeable enough to help people understand God's will. But it's important to realize that being a disciple maker doesn't mean that you're necessarily the person who's doing all the evangelism or bringing people to the waters of baptism only. No, there's a wide variety of ways in which we are disciple making. In fact, a good definition for disciple making is being someone who simply helps another person be a better follower and someone who trusts in Jesus Christ. Whatever place they're at on the continuum of discipleship. Some people, they may need to hear the basic message. They've never even heard of Jesus, and you help them along. You're being a disciple maker. Some people have been Christians for a long time, but they need to grow to the next level of service and ministry, and you can mentor them. That's disciple making too. A mom who's teaching her children the faith, a father who's leading his family in family worship. You're involved in disciple making. All of that counts, and that's part of what it means to be making disciples. Brothers and sisters, we've looked at 3 terms that are critical for understanding what discipleship is all about: disciple, discipleship, and disciple making. May we be people who are answering Jesus' call. When he says, "Come follow me," may we answer that and be a disciple, be someone who's committed to discipleship and also committed to making disciples. Our next lesson is, who are you following? Look forward to seeing you on that next video.